Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to my Fallout 4 Mod Spotlight series, where today we are having a look at yet another wonderful mod, this time in the form of plasma swords, which is being made by user Tricky Vane. And what this glorious little piece of work looks to add into the game is, well, plasma swords. It's right there in the name, folks, and it is freaking awesome. I'm having so much fun with this mod, as I mean, come on, who doesn't want to roll around the wasteland chopping your enemies into bits with one of these? It's just cool and very, very well made. I want to actually give, though, a little bit of background on this first, because I find it quite interesting that this mod was originally intended to be a part of another mod in Fallout New Vegas, but it never came out, so it got lost to time, and then the mod maker decided to release it as its own individual plasma swords mod here for Fallout 4. And I find that quite intriguing because even though it was made for New Vegas, it does kind of have a cool Institute feel to it, which I think is very fitting, especially considering how you do obtain this particular sword. Now, there are two different download links on the Nexus page for this. The first main download for the mod, which is the main mod files, will give you this sword and all of its different upgrades that you can build for it, but the only way to get a hold of it is through console commands, so you will have to cheat this thing in, and, well, I have a feeling that most of you won't mind that too much, but yes, it is a little bit cheaty. Now, there is a second file, though, which is considered optional, though personally, I think it should just be rolled right into the main mod files already, and this optional file will add it into the leveled loot list for the game, which is quite cool. So once you hit between level 25 and 30, you'll actually start seeing this particular weapon in the inventories of merchants, and that is nice, because then you can buy the blade, but also you'll find it on certain synths, which is again why I find it interesting that it looks like it has an Institute flare, and you find it on Institute synths. That is just awesome. And again, it makes me wonder, because of the whole Fallout New Vegas is what it was originally planned for. I'm curious to know how much the design may have changed between the two mods. But yes, it is a very cool looking weapon nonetheless. As you can see, very, very good modeling on the hilt of it. And the actual plasma blade is, I think, one of my favorite things I've seen on a mod in a long while, because I don't know how well you guys will be able to see it on the YouTube video, but if you look through the blade at the tree in the background, the plasma blade is actually adding that sort of heat effect that you get when you look through something hot at whatever's behind it. And I do like and enjoy quite thoroughly that it does make whatever is behind that blade a bit wibbly wobbly, because, well, it's just a fun little detail. Now, most people probably would never notice that, but it's a cool detail that I very much enjoy, and to me just makes the blade that much cooler. Now, as for what the weapon is itself, it's not exactly the most damaging of things, and of course, being a plasma sword deals energy damage, and the base damage is 30. But, of course, being an energy weapon, it should be affected by any perks, etc., or magazines that you find in the world, so it should up the damage with whatever those are that you have, which is quite good. It has a speed of medium, because, of course, melee weapon, it will function just like any other melee weapon, a weight of 3 and a value of 225. Now, as for the modifications, the basic weapon will have no upgrades in this slot, and a wavelength of 540, which is the basic plasma blade there, which is quite cool. Sadly, we can't see it in here, but we can get a much nicer look at that very beautiful hilt. Once again, I love the look of that thing. It's very cool and definitely feels like the Institute, to me at least, and I quite enjoy that. But if we actually tab back into the Pip-Boy, you can see we have a variety of swords here, each of them with different modifications, which we'll look at momentarily. First, though, let's actually check out this thing in the weapons workbench to see what all those modifications do. Now let's go to our basic plasma sword here, and in our first upgrade slot, we have 3 different options of things to add on here, or really, potentially take away. The first one we have is the Unshielded Emitter core, and I actually really find this one quite interesting because it has no physical part requirements, but it does require skills of Blacksmith 1 and Science 1, but you're not actually building anything, you're actually taking it off. You're removing the radiation shielding on the actual blade, which is I'm kind of amused that it doesn't have any part requirements, because you're not adding anything, you're removing it. And by doing so, you actually add in 30 radiation damage, which gives you a nice little advantage to the blade. It not only does the energy damage, but also radiation. So you have two different types of damage against your enemies, and that's just good. Now the next one we have here will require some parts and blacksmith rank 2, and that is the stabilizing blade. And what this will do is, besides adding some weight to the weapon, it also adds in 8 physical damage, so you not only have the energy but also physical, and that's good to have, so you again can have another type of damage to it. And I mean, come on, that's just a cool looking blade that it adds to the front. And the final one we have in this slot is the Berserker Blade, which will add 16 melee damage total, and is not quite as long of a blade as the other one, but is much thicker and more deadly looking in my opinion. And again, will require some parts and blacksmith rank 3. A very cool addition, I quite enjoy it. Now, the next slot we have is different wavelengths for the Plasma Blade. Now, the standard one is 540, and that is just the Plasma Sword. And it's the standard medium range and damage. And then if we go to the 660 wavelength, though, that will actually make the blade longer, but reduce the damage that it does by 5. But it will ignore 25% of the energy and damage resistance, which could potentially make it much stronger than the standard blade if that enemy does, has those resistances on it. And that, of course, will require some things to build and science rank 2. And actually, I believe all these require rank 1 to 3, depending on which ones you'll need on this, so between ranks 1 and 3 on science. And yeah, the 660 is pretty cool and called the Vulcan Plasma Blade, and I quite enjoy it. Now the next we have is the 610 wavelength, which is the Cauterizing Plasma Blade. Now again, it will decrease the damage a little bit by 3 points of energy damage, but it will increase the range. But what I love about it, it adds burning damage. And who doesn't want to light your enemies on fire? It's just fun and entertaining, frankly. And I quite like it, plus the name Cauterizing Plasma Sword is just cool. Now the next is the 450 wavelength, which is the, oh god, I honestly don't know how to say this word quite here, Non-Eutectic Plasma Sword? Yeah, I really don't know if I'm saying that correctly in the slightest, but this one will reduce the range of the blade, so it'll be a bit shorter, but it vastly increases the damage to 44, and will also electrocute enemies, and that's also just plain old entertaining. And the final one we have, the 410 wavelength, is the Nuclear Plasma Sword. Again, will shorten the range, but also increase the damage, this time up to 49, and will give you a chance to stun with each hit. Again, fun to do. Now, what's also cool about all these is, besides being, changing the different damage ratios, etc., they also change the color of the blade, which is quite cool. So let's actually go and look at all of these, since I do have them all built individually. Now, of course, we have the standard Plasma Sword here, which, if we take a look at, is pretty simple. Nothing too fancy, but it does have the cool green blade. Now, if we go to the first of the upgrades, which was the Unshielded Plasma Sword, that one, if we pull that out, you'll see has a fun little nuclear symbol on it, so that it does also do that nuclear radiation damage, which is, again, fun and good to have. The next is the first of the bladed ones, which I forget what it's called here, the Slashing Plasma Sword. The next one is the Smitty's Special Plasma Sword. I like that name. And yeah, you just got the cool blade out front, which I do find entertaining and kind of badass. Now on 3 is the other blade, the Smitty's Special. Not quite as long of a blade, but it does look quite damaging. And that's just cool. Now, I'll have to admit, I completely forgot what I have on my next favorite, so I'm actually just going to go back into the Pip-Boy and start up the Cauterizing Plasma Sword. Oh, actually, no, I think the next one was the Vulcan. I think. Let's just click it anyways. There we go. We have the Vulcan, which is a red blade there, and is quite nice. And remember, this one will cut through the energy resistances, even though it does a little bit less damage, and is quite nice to have. Again, just a cool red blade to it. Very fun. Now, the next one is the Cauterizing Sword, which is my personal favorite because, again, who doesn't want to light people on fire? And it, of course, does have an orangey yellow blade to it, which is quite fun to have. There we are. The next is the... Again, I'm still not entirely sure how to pronounce that. A Non-Eutectic Plasma Sword, which will electrocute your enemies and is a very... gorgeous blue. I really do love the blue color of this thing. It is quite cool. Very, very soothing for a deadly weapon. And then finally we have the Nuclear Plasma Blade, which will have a chance to stun your enemies and is a pretty purple. Though honestly, out of all the different swords, it's kind of also the hardest to see the blade. The purple kind of... I don't know, it seems to fade a bit more into the background. It's not quite as pronounced as the others. But nonetheless, we'll end up stunning your enemies. Well, a potential chance of stunning your enemies. And that's just cool. And overall, it's just a fun thing to have all these different bits. I think right now, my favorite combination, if I actually take off the cauterizing one onto here, my favorite combination is the Smitty's Special Plasma Sword mixed with the oh boy, the cauterizing one. There we go. That's the right one. Forgot for a moment. Because it is just cool. You not only have a blade, but you also have a fun plasma sword that'll light people on fire. And that is just great. So you basically have 3 different kinds of damage. You have the energy damage from the actual plasma sword, the physical damage from the Smitty's Special Blade up front, and of course, the chance to set enemies on fire. And that's just fun. So yeah, if you would like to check out this mod for yourself, and I definitely would suggest that you go and do that, you can take a look at the link in the description and enjoy yourself, because, well, it's just entertaining. There we go. We can light our settlers on fire, and currently they don't seem to care. Well, I'm pretty sure they'd care if I kept slashing at them, but let's just go find Preston. I wanna light him on fire. It needs to happen. It needs to happen. Ah, what the hell, I'll settle for him. There we go, but yes, it's a fun mod. Go enjoy yourself with it, light people on fire, electrocute them, whatever you so desire. And yeah, enjoy your time and entertaining value of a plasma sword. That's going to be it for today's episode. I hope you all have enjoyed, and of course, that you do come back for the next episode. But until that time, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good one. Now it's time for me to fight my entire settlement. For how many times now have I done this in these videos? Good times. Later, folks!